Okay, so I titled this presentation from OldFi to DeFi, and kind of connects to the previous presentation. Like I wanted to show how we went to the OldFi, I mean, to the way the current traditional finance works, to DeFi as we know right now. So it's interesting because I joined Aave, that was Itland, like back in 2017. And I joined exactly for this reason, because I was very interested and amused by this concept of having the possibility of borrowing money completely on chain without third parties, and just by providing a collateral, right? So when I joined Aave, that was Itland in 2017, Itland was actually already providing decentralized and permissionless lending, but it was very, very different compared to what we have right now. What the compound is, what Aave is, because back in the days in 2017 there was no DAI. USDT was on Omni, the Omni chain, that is the kind of side chain of Bitcoin. So how Itland back in the days was working without stable coins, without the tools that we have right now for DeFi integration, DeFi composability. We had actually this protocol that was very curious and interesting, because I always defined it as the eBay of loans. Back in the days, we had this marketplace where you could go and create we called it a loan request, where you could actually publish a request for a loan with your own terms, like which collateral, how long the loan, what interest rates, what currency did you want. And then you had this application, the decentralized application that was Itland, and you could go there and see all the loans that were published and decide which loans you wanted to fund and earn interest on that, right? And we didn't have stable coins, and it was quite complicated, quite tricky to provide stable value loans back in the days. So what we did was introducing the concept of ETH-pegged loans. So you were able, borrowers were basically able to receive a certain amount of ETH and repay at the moment of repayment an equivalent amount in dollars of ETH. So you would borrow, say, $3,000 of ETH, and we would repay $3,000 of ETH, which would safeguard you from the volatility of ETH, right? So this is how we were managing stable value loans, not stable coins loans, back in the days. Then in 2007, we went, Itland actually at the beginning was used a lot. I remember it went to borrowing volume of like 20 or 30 million in 1 month. So there was huge demand back in the days. Then in 2018, Compound came and kind of made our product instantaneously obsolete, because the model of Compound, our model had a lot of friction. You had to publish your loan request, wait until someone would fund it. Then if it didn't get funded, then you would need to maybe create a new one with different parameters, different configurations. So for a trader, it's not the best perspective, right? A trader wants the liquidity, and he wants the liquidity immediately because he needs to capture some opportunity, right? And Compound kind of disrupted this market, because the liquidity pool, the money market model that they launched is way more efficient from a user perspective. You just go there, you deposit your liquidity. If you need to borrow, you deposit your asset as a liquidity that also earn interest, and you can immediately take your loan from the liquidity available with a market decided interest rate, right? So it was this dropping in our platform was, I mean, the usage of our platform became almost immediately very limited because everybody was moving to Compound. So we realized that we needed to change something, right? So we launched Aave at the beginning of the year. The model that we follow is the same as Compound, so it's a money market. Actually, our goal is to have multiple money markets. Compound is one money market. We want to have multiple money markets with different risk profiles. Like I was saying before, we launched the Aave Uniswap market, where you can borrow against Uni token. And that market is a separate one compared to the main market, where all the normal asset is, and they are separated for multiple reasons. One reason is the risk, because the Uniswap tokens have a different risk profile compared to the normal assets. Another one is that for the inherent way the money markets and lending protocol work, every time you add a currency to the money market, you add some gas costs to all the actions, right? So you actually want to limit or be very careful in listing many currencies, because that might actually make your protocol unusable because it's too expensive to submit the transactions. So we brainstormed a lot on what we could do to improve the lending model, and we came out with these ideas. One of those was what we were already discussing, the flash loans. Other ideas were the A tokens that are tokenized derivatives of the user deposits that they have the peculiarity that they increase in value compared, in the balance compared to the increase in value of, for example, the C tokens or the P tokens or the I tokens there were before. And also we introduced the stable rate borrowing, which is our kind of a different approach to the borrowing interest rates compared to the classic variable that is also available, of course, on Aave, but is what Compound has as a main algorithmic interest rate model. So I will go very quickly because I want to talk mostly about the flash loans. So the stable and variable borrow rates, like I was anticipating before, we have these two interest rate models. One is specifically works and adapts to the demand and supply of the market. So the more you borrow, the more the higher the cost of money, and it's very volatile. You know, really depends. Can be 50%, and 10 minutes later can be 3%, because it depends on the liquidity available. Also, we have this model that you can see here in the diagram, where we have like two slopes to handle the interest rates. So the interest rates for the borrowers slightly increase from 0 to 80% usage ratio. That is how much liquidity is borrowed, and then it skyrockets to 70% to incentivize the liquidity providers to put more liquidity, or borrowers to close the borrow position to bring back the demand to acceptable levels. So the stable instead doesn't follow this particular interest rate model, but when you take a loan at a stable rate, it will stay at that specific rate despite the liquidity available and the demand. The variable, there are only certain conditions that we needed, because we have certain conditions that allow the protocol to we say rebalance this stable rate to higher rates if there is so much demand that who is borrowing cannot borrow that cheaply anymore, like with constant with a fixed rate, but the probability of this happening is very low. Let's say that right now we have a rebalancing condition of the stable rate that it only happens if at 95% usage ratio, the depositors are not earning at least 25%. That is really, really unlikely to happen. Then the flash loans, that is what I want to focus, because it's the topic of the discussion. So I was anticipated before. It's a way of taking liquidity from a liquidity pool, use it in whatever way you want, and return it at the end of the transaction. If you don't do that, the transaction gets reverted, right? It's not. It was when we introduced that, it was not a new concept. There was, I think, Marble. I don't remember. There was a protocol that never went to mainnet, I think, or when it was to mainnet, was never audited or never used. But I don't remember right now. So it was new, not a new concept. But what we introduced that other platforms didn't do was actually combine this concept of flash loans with liquidity pools, right? The Marble protocol, I think the name was Marble, required you to put liquidity in their smart contracts for the specific goal of executing flash loans, right? Instead, we said, okay, we have this liquidity sitting in the protocol here that is being borrowed, right? What can we allow our users to do with this liquidity and be completely sure that they will return back the liquidity and not actually stealing the liquidity from the protocol? So the flash loans came to mind, and we actually also spent a lot of time and resources brainstorming on use cases and potential integrations. Unfortunately, as was being said before, what happened is that immediately after flash loan became kind of mainstream, instead of being used for the good, they were used for the bad. And so at the end of the day, we saw, we witnessed the attack that we are discussed before. But at the same time, good use case, maybe it took a little bit more time to integrate, but we are now seeing a very, very interesting increase on the flash loans volume. Specifically thanks to a few platforms. One of these is DeFi Saver, the other one is Furukombo. Specifically, we saw a huge increase of the flash loan volume during the Black Thursday. That was on the 12th of and this was mostly because the people was using DeFi Saver to deleverage their positions, right, or to close their position and save their collaterals from liquidations. So a tool like DeFi Saver, you can go there, you can use flash loans to leverage your Maker CDP or Vault, or your loan on Compound, for example, automatically using Aave flash loans. And you, at the same time, you can either deleverage your position if you want to exit, for example, or at least part of your leveraged position, or even if you are being liquidated and you don't have any way to repay, you can use flash loan to repay your loan, get back the collateral, sell the collateral on the market, and then get the difference, avoid the liquidation, basically save the 10 or 13% penalty that there is on liquidation on Maker, or the 5% on Compound, or whatever. Or whatever other lending platform the user is utilizing. So especially interesting, this happened like 10, 15 days ago. There was this guy here on the left that used DeFi Saver to leverage 1.3 million DAI and open a Maker CDP. So in the, like, what was that? Half an hour? No, even less, 20 minutes. In more or less in 20 minutes, like one single person generated 1.3 million of worth of DAI or flash loans and this was to using DeFi saver to leverage their CDP. This is probably even more interesting. Is the this user of Furucombo, the other platform. Furucombo is a platform where you can you have kind of predefined blocks of DeFi, and you can merge them together with no code knowledge, right? So you want to use a flash loan, you take the block of flash loan, you move on the design screen. Then you want to sell on Uniswap, then you take the Uniswap block and you move on the design screen. And it allows you to create DeFi strategies on the fly without any coding knowledge. And this was super interesting and super funny because this user of Furucombo actually managed to pull out an arbitrage using a Furucombo defined strategy. And she was actually not using any arbitrage bot, but she was using an Excel file to keep track of the price, which is very, very crazy if you think about it. Being able to arbitrage using an Excel file is very, very amusing and very interesting. So in my opinion, we will see, going forward, we will see less and less attacks performed using flash loans, specifically because the platforms now, they kind of keep this risk of being price manipulated using flash loan very, I mean, they give a lot of importance to price manipulation. We as Aave give a lot of importance to price manipulation. And so oracles and proper risk assessment, they become fundamental. But at the same time, I think we will see an increase in usage of flash loans for this particular use case. My guess is that for 6 months, 1 year from now, there will be a lot of possibility of leveraging these building blocks of DeFi to build stuff that doesn't even need coding skills. So my guess is that the flash loan volume will increase. We have one difference compared to other protocols like DYDX or Uniswap. They introduced flash swap, that we provide. We actually provide additional earnings for our depositors, right? So whenever a flash loan is collected on our platform, the protocol collects 0.09% or 9 BPS of the total, and it redistributes that to the depositors, right? This allows us to have higher APR. I mean, the liquidity providers actually not only earn from the borrowing and from the loans generated by the borrowers, but they also earn from the flash loans, which for us is really important. I mean, there was a lot of debate when we launched about flash loans should be free, flash loans should not be free. I personally, and we as a company believe that if you want to use liquidity that the users are putting there, you should pay for it, okay? Maybe 9 BPS is not the correct price. Maybe the fee will go down as the volume increases. There is no doubt about that, but Aave will always keep a fee for the liquidity providers, because we believe that when liquidity providers provide the liquidity, they provide liquidity because they want a return, right? If they would provide liquidity just to allow other people to use their liquidity for free, then they would probably not provide the liquidity at all. So this is what we believe, even though that might cause like in the long term other platform to kind of out flash loan us, in the sense that the volume of flash loans of the other platform will increase compared to ours. We don't really care at the end of the day, because it's also a matter of network effect, working with providing interesting use case, providing clear documentation, provide ease of integration. So this is definitely the road we are gonna keep for the flash loan in the future. Like I was saying, probably the fee will be adjusted in the future, even though right now it's working quite well. And yeah, I don't really have much more to say. Okay, I had the A tokens here, I detailed with the A tokens, but I would just say that we introduced this specific way of generating derivatives for our depositor. So you get, when you deposit, you get a token that is conceptually similar to C tokens, to the CDAI, or to other interest-bearing assets that are on other lending platforms, with the difference that we provide a stable value compared to the underlying asset. So when you deposit 1,000 DAI, for example, on Aave, you get 1,000 A DAI, and those 1,000 A DAI will always stay 1,000 A DAI in value. So it's 1-to-1, 1 DAI equal 1 A DAI, which improves the user experience for users that actually want to use A tokens as a form of payment, or to do easily and transfer value. And yeah, so what happens is that the interest will grow automatically in your balance, and this happens algorithmically per second. So every second you will see your A token balance increase, which is cool. A lot of people likes that. We also have on the A tokens, we also built this interest redirection feature, where you can actually decide to redirect your interest generated to to another wallet that doesn't need to have a DAI. So when you do this, when you redirect your interest, your A DAI balance will remain the same, will not grow, but the difference of the interest accrual will go to the wallet to which you are performing the redirection. A cool use case of this, I don't know if you guys know the Gervais exchange. They are using the interest redirection. What they do is that they provide free transactions using relayers, right? And they pay the relayers using the interest redirection generated by the user deposits. So when a user deposits in their exchange, they actually deposit under the hood in Aave, right? So they generate interest and they redirect the interest to the relayer, which gets paid with the interest generated by the users, and the users enjoy free transaction. This is a cool use case of the interest redirection. I think that's it. Yeah, I will, since the talk is flash loans, I will not go further on detailing the other stuff. And yeah, that's it. I mean, there is a lot more coming in the next months. We are probably going to extend the flash loans functionality on our protocol to allow different use cases. Right now, we are quite limited in our current implementation because you have reentrancy word in the whole contract. So whenever you execute a flash loan, you cannot interact with the Aave protocol because all the other functions are locked. For next iterations, we are gonna probably relax this condition a little bit. So relax the reentrancy word through only specific cases, which will allow us to interact with the Aave protocol during a flash loan, which will allow us to provide new and different use cases.
Thanks. So I would have two questions, but also feel free others to raise questions. Like,
yeah, I see a couple of questions. Yeah, it's yours, right?
Right. So, like, I do see applications of this interest redirection, but I mean, doesn't it lose the effect of compounding? Like, that would be one downside of this use case.
No, it basically it compounds the interest in the exact same way as your balance compounds. It's also only that the interest that is generated, since the interest is generated algorithmically, right? In the, it's an ERC20, we have the balance of function. If you check the balance of function of the A token contract, you will see that the balance is algorithmically increased, right? So what we do is that, okay, right now the protocol is earning 5%. Each second we improve we increase the balance of the user by that 5%, of course, normalized to the second. Then at some point when we were developing this, we were thinking, okay, this is cool, but what if we can actually have this accrual in another wallet and keep the stable value of the actual A tokens in the original wallet? And we do the same. It's just that the balance of the user that is redirecting the interest gets redirected to the guy that actually received the redirection. So he stops accrue interest on his side, and the other guy starts generating interest. So it's like imagine like the other guy has actually also 1,000 DAI, but he can never withdraw that because it's not actually his money. So this is how it works, very in a very simplified way.
Thanks. And another question, I like blockchain companies because you can inspect their incomes, but I didn't do this beforehand with Aave. So like, I would be interested to know like how much money you make from, let's say, flash loans. So what's the income? Like you mentioned that you have this 0.09% after each flash loan you take as a fee.
Yeah.
So like, just to give us an idea, how much money, how much Ether Aave makes, let's say, per day.
I can maybe share.
I suppose it's already on the blockchain, so everyone knows it.
Yeah, I can actually share. If you give me 1 second, I can share. There is this interesting website that is called Aave Watch that a user of our community built. I will share the screen so I can actually, and it shows actually the fees that we collect and the part of the fees that come from the flash loan, the part of the fee that goes to the depositors and everything. Okay, let's see if I can share. It's like, I have 2 screens and one is really big, so I need to be careful where I share. Okay. Can you guys see it?
Yes. Can you zoom in maybe, please?
Yes. Let's see. I'm not sure if it works. For some reason it's not zooming. Okay, but I can go to the chart because at the end of the day, like to answer the question, the chart is the interesting fact. Can you see it? This last chart, protocol fees.
Nope. Doesn't move. We still see like DeFi Pulse and the main.
Ah, okay. No. Wait. It says sharing another window. Wait a second. For some reason. So the thing is that we collect the big majority of what we collect with the flash loan fee goes actually to the depositors, not to the protocol itself. Can you see it now?
Yeah, cool.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, you see, so this chart of the free distribution is actually interesting. We call the fees that we collect protocol-wise are an origination fee on the borrowing. So whenever you borrow, the protocol gets an origination fee. And a part of the fee on the flash loans, that is 30%, goes to the protocol, right? The rest gets redistributed to the liquidity providers. Actually, I can show you that. For example, if we check DAI up here on the left, you can see that DAI has an API of 2.45% and an additional APR of 0.13% that is coming from the flash loans, right? So actually the depositors on average are earning 2.58% and not 2.45. So there is 0.13% additional yield that comes from the flash loan. In the protocol instead, you can see specifically for the flash loans, it collected from the beginning for ETH, collected like 17, almost 18 ETH worth of fees. Most of the fees went to the depositors. Of course, we only kept 30%.
But this is since launch, or what? What does
this
this?
is since launch, yeah.
Okay, okay.
And 13 ETH worth of DAI and 1.22 worth of USDC. It's interesting because thanks to the flash loans, we have a very high income for ETH. If you look at here, we have 0.16% APY and 0.08 coming from flash loans, which is 0.24 API, and the rest of the lending protocols I have almost zero on ETH. So being able to provide 0.24 APY on Ethereum ETH depositors for us is a big deal, because it's money that the ETH borrowers actually get for borrowing and using ETH as collateral.
And how do you calculate APY for assets, or what is it? Is it a function of what, volume, or how do you?
Okay, the API is calculated as a function of the of what the borrowers are paying and how much liquidity is being used, right? Imagine if the borrowers are paying 3% and 100% of the liquidity is used, then the depositors are earning 3%. If borrowers are paying 3% and 50% of the liquidity is used, depositors are earning 1.5%. It's a matter of capital allocation. Yeah, and this is for the normal APY, right? For the flash loan APY, actually, it's not exactly like that, because really we do an average of what we collect, because you know the flash loan fees are a one-time thing. It's not a flowing interest rate, like the flowing income, like what the borrowers are paying that comes streams in the protocol every second. It's a one-time thing. You take the flash loan, you take the fee, and you add it to the liquidity for the depositors, right? So to calculate this, we do an average. So this is why there is the tilde symbol here, and so it really depends on when you join the protocol. We give here an estimation. For one interesting fact is, for example, during the Black Thursday, the protocol earned, I think, 12 ETH worth of fees in one day from the volume. And we calculated that in that single day, ETH depositors earned 15% APR. I mean, if we had that volume every day, at the end of the year, ETH depositors would have gotten 15% APR. It is really, it's really crazy. It really gives the perspective of what we can achieve with flash loan when the flash loan scale, even by collecting a fee. You know, at the end of the day, having 4 or 5 events like this during a year already provide great income for the depositors. It's important to note that flash loans are specifically useful when there is a huge volatility, both in when price drops and when price rises. And the reason is that when price drops, usually liquidation happens. People wants to deleverage, people wants to repay their loans, and maybe they don't have the money, and then they use tools that use flash loans. When the price is rising, instead, maybe people wants to leverage, and so they use this tool that use flash loan under the hood to be able to quickly leverage in one transaction.
Super crazy.
Yeah. Actually, another interesting thing that would be right now, it's not so used because we just launched the multiple markets, is that we also originally thought of flash loans like a tool to allow to move seamlessly between markets. You know, imagine that in the future we will be able to allow borrowers, for example, that are borrowing on our main market, say, for example, they are using ETH to borrow DAI, right? And then we have the Uniswap market, and the borrower changes his mind and says, okay, I am borrowing using ETH, but actually I would be more comfortable by keeping my borrow position and provide ETH liquidity to ETH and link, for example, liquidity to Uniswap, right? So you can use flash loan to repay your debt, sell part of the ETH for link, move the deposit to the Uniswap market, create the same exact borrow position, but using the Uni token as collateral and not ETH, and repay the flash loan. And you have the same debt, but you changed your collateral.
I also see 5 MKR flash loans. Like, is it a sign that someone attempted to do a governance attack, or why?
No, but yeah. But actually, if you remember, they were a bit scared back in the days when they fixed the media. They had this, I would not say this vulnerability, but this possible abuse on the maker governance, and they kind of, the flash loans made them kind of huge, fixing that particular aspect of their governance.
I was just thinking out loudly, isn't this a sign? Or I just cannot imagine why one would need the flash loan in MK.
I think they just use it for arbitrage. I would need to go back and see what this 5 MKR flash loans were used for, but most likely for arbitrage on Uniswap or Balancer.
Okay.
We don't have enough MKR to perform a governance attack. So
would be nice if anyone has enough MKR, contact us.
Just put in Aave, and then we will think about it.
Okay, so don't be shy, guys, and ladies and gentlemen. Shoot your questions if you have any to Emilio, because Emilio soon needs to go. So
yeah, just a quick question regarding to the future. So Emilio, you have said a few things that are coming in the future, but if you have to like explain where you are headed with the protocol in the upcoming 1 or 2 years, I think that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So like I was saying at the beginning, our idea from the start was to having this multiple and interoperable, isolated but interoperable money markets. So the protocol was built with this idea in mind. Next step that is gonna be completed shortly is the governance. So we are shortly gonna release a governance which will empower landholders with the ability to actually govern the protocol. And after that, there will be, we already kind of anticipated, we are going to build a governance infrastructure where we will have also a security mechanism built in the protocol, where we are going to use, where basically landholders will be able to stake their token. It's not much security, but I would say more safety, in the sense that it works to guarantee the safety of the liquidity providers. We will have this system in which is basically a staking infrastructure where landholders will be able to stake their land and act as an insurance for the protocol, right? So if an event happened that causes deficit on the protocol, I don't know, can be a smart contract bug, hopefully not, can be a liquidation risk, can be failure of a collateral, for example. I don't know, one of the collaterals that we listed for some reason fails and its value goes to 0, and the protocol is left in insolvency, right? because the borrowers that are using that token are not incentivized to repay anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So we will have this staking infrastructure where the landholders will be able to lock their land tokens, and they will bear the risk of the protocol having these deficit events, and eventually to risk their locked assets to repay this deficit, and in exchange they will get the protocol incentives that will be generated in the future by migrating the land token to a new one. So we will have this feedback mechanism between the protocol and the insurance. Where the protocol grows, the insurance grows as well. So land will become an insurance token, a bit like NKR, that acts as insurance of last resort from the system. But we are gonna put, instead of minting directly, we are gonna put a stake in the middle, a locking mechanism in the middle with the rewards, so that if an event happens, not everybody is impacted, but only users that actually want to bear the risk for the reward of the protocol.
Can I just have one quick last question? Like, so now if you're looking at the screen you're sharing, why do we see like flash loans? For example, ETH, it's not an integer. I thought it's the number of flash loans using Aave.
Oh, no, these are actually flash loan instantaneous. This is actually a real live view of what is happening. So these are all the flash loans that happened today, more or less, between today, tomorrow, yesterday, and stuff like that. These days the gas fees are really high, and the market is not moving that much. So there is not that movement. It's much more. Yeah, it's much more used when there is a huge market movement, or the transactions fee are cheaper because there is more incentive to use them for arbitrage or liquidations.
Can you go up a little bit? Like there's this little box and written there in yellow, like ETH, like flash loans. What's that, Dan? Right there.
That is the total. Yeah. You were referring to this. I thought you were referring to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that is the total in. That is not the number of flash loans, but it's the total of ETH flash borrowed.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And the biggest flash loan was 2,150 ETH.
If I would be a miner, I would just front run all of these if they are profitable.
Yeah, but the interesting aspect is that, for example, miner the refinancing transactions that are those made by DeFi Saver, for example, where you can leverage the leverager, repay and stuff. Those are not profitable. That is pure new use case for the user. I mean, you use the flash loans to close your position and return back the funds. So they are not profitable. They cannot actually be front run. You know, it's of course when you call a flash loan, like you do a poor flash loan, and the caller gets back the money, then you can the miner can duplicate the transaction and replace himself with the receiver of the tokens. But in this case, everything is managed by smart contracts, so they cannot be really front run. If you are a liquidator and using the flash loans, of course you can be front run, but the same is like if you're not using them, you can be front run as well.
Emilio, I have a question. So this is really exciting stuff you guys are building, and I'm interested in whether you see what type of use cases you see that are more of the good faith type, like more everyday use cases for the average person, rather than the typical arbitrage exploitation or speculation type. So is there, do you see any use cases, I don't know, for my mom, for example, maybe not now, maybe in 2 years, but do you have anything that anything like that you guys at Aave are anticipating or already seeing? So people using it that way?
Okay, for the flash loan specifically, it's not so easy. I mean, besides what we already discussed, that is the refinancing, so moving between one lending platform and the other, for example, or leveraging, repay your loans. It's really not so easy to find other use case for the nature of the flash loan themselves, in the sense that you need to be able to capture a spread in one transaction, otherwise they are useless, right? So it's not really something like I don't foresee my parents or I don't know people that I know knowing about flash loan. I foresee more like use cases that might involve the usage of flash loan in the background, and they actually people will use them without even knowing that the flash loans are being used in the background, like DeFi Saver. DeFi Saver, you use DeFi Saver, they are using the flash loans for each of their actions, that it can be repayment, that it can be leveraging, the leveraging and stuff like that, and you don't see that they are using flash loan. You just click a button and that's it. That is probably what is going to happen in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my point. Do you see anything like that in the future? So, for example, refinancing is a use case I would say my mom would use, of course, because
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Refinancing. Imagine you have your loan in compound and you don't like it anymore, and you want to move to Aave, or you just want to change your collateral. Then with flash loans you can do that.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with that, thanks a lot for Kaihua and Emilio for your time and energy. And then hopefully we will be able to release the video shortly on YouTube, and then also many other people can learn from these presentations. So grazie mille, thanks a lot. And,
grazie a voi.
See you soon, guys.
Thanks guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.